This gets a little wacky, but that's okay. We'll just see if we're popping up here on the old YouTube stream. There we are. Look at that. Sort of better at this, but welcome to the Osmo DFS Strategy Show. It's Saturday morning, and you've got Jay Kari and your old pal Emac here, the youngest and the oldest at Osmo. There we are, the bookends, if you will. And I see we're wearing matching shorts, matching shirts, kind of. But I got a little more gray in my hair. I got to work on that Grecian formula like you're using, right? Just for men. Is that what you go with?
Yeah, just for men. Just hammer that in the hair, and just let it do what it does.
Oh yes. Once upon a time, I had thick and luxurious hair. Wasn't really brown. It wasn't really black. It was very dark. And every time I got my hair cut, they'd always say, "Oh man, your hair's so thick." They haven't said that for a long time, Jake. They have not said that for a long time. But I'm getting my hair cut this evening, so there we go. It's starting to get a little out of control, and you'll notice as you get older, the hair doesn't necessarily it disappears from up here on the forehead, but your eyebrows suddenly become magnificent. You get little sprouts by your ears. It's bizarre. So the hair doesn't really go away, Jake. It just shows up in unwanted places.
Yeah. Apparently, I look like John Travolta. I suppose I'll take that. I don't know if that's an insult.
No, that would be a good one. That would be from Saturday Night Fever, Staying Alive. I forget.
Yeah, he's in Greece, right?
Oh yes, that also.
Yeah,
You kind of do there.
I'll take that one.
The black shirt and there you go. So good times here. Oh boy, we've got a lot to talk about today. We have a full slate here. We've got the DFS strategy show. I keep playing around and trying to get it, so I have a nice little spreadsheet like Josh, so I can share our screen and do all that. I'm not quite there yet, but that's all right, because we're going to talk through all of this. And if you have questions, just ask. So a few key things at the top. This is the DFS strategy show. However, the promo code for this one is live before lock because this is the universal template that we are using. But if you want to get 50% off any Osmo 1-month subscription, use the promo code live before lock, all one word, and that'll happen. The magic will happen. And we have MMA, NHL, courtesy of Jay Kari. We have NASCAR projections, ownership projections for all this stuff too. NBA playoffs, single game showdown projections now for NBA, which have been actually helpful for me. What was not helpful for me was the 4 overtimes last night for the NBA game. But wow, I'd say what a game. But I went to bed before the last 2 happened. But shout out to CJ McCollum, Jake. He played all 60 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I was watching some of that actually after the hockey game ended.
Or I should say all. I guess that's not all. There would be 68 total minutes. He played 60. Damn impressive.
That's pretty wild.
That is pretty good. Oh, they're asking about that Baseball Savant. Do they know that you actually run Baseball Savant?
I don't know. I think people think that I actually do. I think Chris convinced people that I actually run that.
I did when I first was coming over here from FanVice, and we were joining up. I listened to a couple shows, and he was saying something about you and Baseball Savant, and who would make that up?
Yeah, it's because I used to refer to it all the time. I would talk about exit velocity and all that stuff, and I haven't gotten too much into that this season. Been more focused on lineup construction itself. So Chris just took it and ran with it, and it kind of became a thing.
Well, definitely beautiful. But we'll get in on the slate here. We got about 150 people coming in, so that's a good starting point. We will turn this into a podcast as well as we do on Saturdays, since we know everybody's going to be running around. And if you read the little description on the podcast, I do tell you when the 4 o'clock games start and then when the 7 o'clock games start. So if you're wanting to catch up on that and not burn through data, you can get a look at it, and then by the time you're back at your computer, you'll know who is the starting lineups. So we'll go from there. We don't have that many starting lineups yet because the slate is broken out uniquely. We have a 1 o'clock game for which we have the starting lineup, but Fantasy Draft, DraftKings Yahoo, one of the presenting sponsors here at Osmo, and FanDuel are ignoring that 1 game slate. They're using it as showdown or not doing it at all. Yahoo is using that as they always do. each game, each lock time, they go from that lock till the rest of the slate. So if you want to get certain players, they're the best place to get it. Prize pools aren't as big for the quote off slates, but is oftentimes you'll find a little bit of room in some of these contests, and it is nice because they only have a 12.5% management fee, where the other sites generally are at 16 now, which makes this nearly an untenable sport to win at. But Jake, I am having my best year ever right now. I am up $6,200 since January.
Wow, that's pretty good.
And you know the volume I'm playing. I'm playing about $200 a day, so that's I've been on one hell of a heater, which is about $800 less than what I used to play 2 years ago. So whatevs. But it's all about not redepositing, and I've been withdrawing, Jake. Withdrawing, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, withdrawing is always nice. I usually just withdraw when I need to make a big purchase or, a sizable purchase. So that's always a good feeling to withdraw. Haven't done that in a while, though. Maybe I will withdraw here, especially if we have some success on these slates here.
All right, well, let's jump right on into it. We've got our first one here, for which, let me get to the right page. It is the 1 o'clock game. We have 3 4 o'clock games and a 6 o'clock game. Now, the main sites are using that as their, quote, early main slate, so from 4 to 6, those 4 games. And then a robust 10-game slate at 7:05 this evening. So that is one of the largest Saturday night slates that we have seen since the very beginning of the season. But it's the Minnesota Jakes heading into the Big Apple, taking on the New York Yankees. We have a lovely day, about 64 degrees, just a wisp of a breeze coming in there from the outfield at 3 to 7 miles per hour. And you've got your namesake, Jake Odorizzi, going against J.A. Happ here. I'm playing some showdown slates, Jake, because that's what I do, play all the slates. It's a lot of fun. What are you doing with this game for starters?
I don't know if I'm going to play this game, but just looking at it and looking how I would think ownership is going to play out, I would think the Yankees bats would be really popular and probably Happ. So I would be on a 1-game slate with so much variance in baseball. If there's going to be concentrated ownership really anywhere, I would be looking to play Odorizzi and the Twins here. So Nelson Cruz is probably going to be popular on the showdowns or single games. And I definitely agree with that. I wouldn't be off Odorizzi. Like if he was on this slate, if DK made this a 5-game early, I would definitely have interest in Odorizzi. But in showdown, I mean, same thing. Obviously, on a 1-game slate, your options are limited. So I'll be looking to just kind of get away where the ownership is going to be.
All right, and that that definitely makes a lot of sense here with what we're doing. Let me get up to my spreadsheet so we can see here. As I was doing my crunches, I ended up with a ton of J.A. Happ. I went and reversed that, capped it on, I'm doing 40 lineups here on the showdown for DK, capped it to 30%, went 10% Odorizzi, and just said, give me the bats. All you need is somebody to get a couple extra base hits, and they're going to outperform the pitchers, and that is the route I am going for this one. Now we're going to get onto our main slate here. Let me go over. Do we have any weather issues this evening? Looking at it last night, I think there were 1 or 2, but I think most everything is cleared up, with the exception of
Baltimore, Cincy.
Yep, the West Coast, or pardon me, the West Coast. Goodness, I'm no longer on the West Coast, the East Coast. So we've got kind of a little bit of a storm system. I was hoping that would dissipate somewhat, but it's gonna. We had a lot of rain and thunder and lightning last night here in the DC area, but that also encompasses Baltimore, and this weather system is kind of shifting to the grouping where they're going to hit Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Baltimore. The New York game's going to be early enough that it's not going to be an issue, and then the Mets are on the road, so we don't have to worry about them. And then let's see, it looks like, we have another game in Monterrey, Mexico, Jake. Caught that one early, so we don't have to talk about being foolish. Was it Spags and I? I think Spags and I mucked that one up. But Houston and the Angels are in Monterey tonight. And
okay, that makes sense. That's why you're seeing massive totals.
Yes, and then because we're not going to talk about the marine layer there. Now we do want to say Monterrey, Mexico, not at altitude like Mexico City, but it would check in at, I think, right around the same altitude as Chase Field. So it's somewhere in the 1100 to 1700 range. I forget, but I had written that up the last time they were there. It does not. It's a full size Major League ballpark. Or let me rephrase that. The outfield dimensions are just like Major League ballpark, so it's not like when they're playing in the Dominican or the random games where there's some exhibition stuff in Cuba, etc. And this is in the it's the home of the Monterey. Can't remember their names, but it's Monterey Stadium in the Mexican League. So it's one of their premier crown jewels there. So you'll want to note also that this is near the coast, but it is about 2 hours driving wise due west of South Padre Island, I believe. So it's near that spot in Texas, Mexico, where Texas is actually a little bit south of Mexico, which is fun with geography. But rounding it out, there's a little bit of a potential issue there in Cincinnati as well tonight. So that is the weather. And we'll get on in here. Oh, I see they're laughing at me. Only 1% to 2% make a profit in DFS. That is really true, X Caustic. And game selection is key. Finding the proper payouts is important, and then just being steady and smart. And I have learned that. So since 2011, I have had one losing season where I did not make money in DFS. Now, I've only had 2 seasons where I was in the 5-figure range. So usually I am lucky enough to finish somewhere between $3,000 and $8,000 a year. And I play a lot less now than volume-wise than I did previously. But slow and steady has been good to me. And then you try to find rake back deals wherever you can. So on DK, I like to play the crowns. If you sign up for Yahoo and you have not yet made a DFS deposit, use the promo code Osmo and they'll match you up to $30 for your first $30 deposit in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Those are available for immediate use. And then I lucked out, Jake, and I still have $1,000 left of my $2,000 deposit bonus on Yahoo that I got. Oh gosh, when they first opened, what was that? Probably back in 2014 or 15. They were giving out some pretty sizable deposit bonuses, so I earned that back, and it's credited to me in player points. So I can then use those as cash. But that's the way you got to do it here, because it's not as easy. Well, it's more daunting than it was a few years ago, because we're down to a very efficient market and a shrinking market, if you will, of just the really, really good players left. So you got to be smart. And then one last thing, and I'm going to turn our next game over to you and let you talk for a while since I've been yammering away here. You the old play cash games, grind up your bankroll, and then move up in stakes. That's a misnomer. Cash games are a lot harder, more efficient than they have ever been. You can still do okay on it, but you need to think of it as like when I play the 50-50s, I treat them more or less like a tournament, Jake, that I get double my money back if I place in the top 40%, which is a little bit better than getting 1.5 times my money back for placing in the top 18 to 20%. But things are not efficient, or pardon me, they are not as easy as they once were. And if you're listening to people telling you otherwise, they're probably not playing cash games. So just want to throw that out there. Yep. All right.
Yeah, I don't play cash. I've been pretty vocal about that. I think path of least resistance in DFS, and that is in large field tournaments. I think it's much better and honestly much more fun. So
absolutely, and that's the key thing here. This used to be, kind of people thought this is a way of life. I can do this for a living. Well, there's not very many people doing it left, and they are playing such incredible volume that their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% profitability, is coming in on $100,000 in play a day. Okay, that adds up. That adds up quickly. But last year I played $100,000 for the entire year, so I am not at the volume of these crazy people, or people like you, Jake, that roll out there in the tournaments. I like to nickel and dime my way to the top. Just when you least expect it, there I am. St. Louis Cardinals, Chicago Cubs, your favorite teams. Your local team, and then your team near and dear to your heart. Our first 2 games up, we've got some intriguing decisions to make here with just 8 pitchers in play on our 4-game main slate. We've got Yu Darvish here, who, as I was saying this, Jake, actually walked a batter because that's what he does. His walk rate, last time I checked, I think it's almost like 17% still on the year. That is not good, because when he does give up his home run or two during the game, which since he challenges batters, that's what happens. There's somebody on the pond there, maybe 2 somebodies. Then we get some crooked numbers, and then it's not so fun to take Yu Darvish. How do you want to approach Darvish going here against a very solid lineup from the Cardinals? We do not have their starting lineup just yet, but we should see Matt Carpenter, Goldie, DeJong, Ozuna, Yadier Molina, because he never takes a day off unless his leg falls apart. Yeah. What do you want to do here with Darvish? And remember, we only have 8 to choose from, so if we cross him off, that's 12% of our pitchers gone.
Yeah, and I'm not crossing Darvish off. I rarely cross pitchers off these days because I'm playing 150 lineups on this slate. But I didn't get to a lot of Darvish, and once I aggregate the projections with what we have on the site, maybe I will get to a little bit more. But I got 4% when I ranked out my top 150. So I think the issue with that is, or the issue with Darvish is the price. And then there's Carrasco for $600 more, who I'm getting to a lot of. And there are some cheap options plus some bats to pay up for. Like, I like some of these Cardinals bats, and I really like them in a stack. Like you mentioned, Darvish, walk issues, and then just a super, super deep lineup here for the Cardinals. They're not really striking out against righties, even though they have a bunch of right-handed bats, 22% K rate on the season, a 112 WRC plus. That's like top 7 or 8. And then they're still hitting for some power, 172 ISO against right-handed pitching this season. So I think Darvish, there's just better options for me. There's one better option, and that's Carrasco, in my opinion. And ownership reflects that. So if you like Darvish, I mean, you're going to get him at half the ownership of Carrasco. But for me, I'm more going with Carrasco here over Darvish.
And I think that's the call. And Adam and I discussed that on the Early Bird podcast last night as well. When you get down to it for the lineup construction, going with Carrasco, he's been a little hit or miss, but he is probably the best pitcher on the slate. But we're going to be rolling the dice with our SP2s on the 2-pitcher side. So if I was playing on FanDuel, I would most likely just start with Carrasco and shake things up from there, potentially with a one-off or a secondary stack that may not be as popular. Or maybe I go, the way their scoring is set up on FanDuel, you really want to go 4-4 stacks almost the entire time. But on a 4-game slate, you can sort of relax that to maybe a 4-3-1 or a 3-3 and then 2 one-offs, and just try to capture whatever potential home run is going to happen. And that doesn't always mean it's going to be the best player hitting the home run, but it's someone who is in a good spot. And hopefully you luck into it, perhaps like a Josh Fagley, who had 60 DK points yesterday. I didn't have him on any lineups, Jake.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't have much of him. I got a bunch of my A's filtered out. I was getting to a bunch of them I mentioned on Live Before Lock, but ended up not really getting there all too much, which was disappointing.
Absolutely. But looking to Michael Wacha, now he's going to be in contention here as one of our SP2s. The Cubs, solid up and down the lineup. No easy outs. Everybody's been a longtime starter, either for the Cubs or other teams throughout the career. Hayward's been with them for a couple years, but he had a long and storied career prior to becoming a Cub. And then Daniel Descalso should be installed at that leadoff spot. He's coming over from Arizona this year. Has that nice lefty-righty matchup against Wacha. The one thing about Wacha is he does not give up a ton of power to lefties. He gives up a little more to righties, but going off memory, since the beginning of last season, which is his last injury return through this season, it's about 160 isolated power to righties. And then if you look back prior to that injury and go back in his time frame to the first time he got hurt, after his magnificent 2.5 years there, he was allowing about a 130 isolated power. So in general, he does not give up a lot of power, but we do have Chris Bryant, we've got Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez. Those guys are all phenomenal. You get Baez and Bryant are both outstanding against same-handed pitchers with a lot of power. You got likely to see Wilson Contreras here. Which side are you feeling like you're going to land on here? And I'm just running my first crunch as well. But which side do you think you're going to land on with Waka? Are you going to get him in the 10 to 15% range? Because
I got no Waka.
zero. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm concentrated on like 4 guys, it's looking like. And Waka did not make the cut for me. Now, obviously, this can change with the different lineups we get. And it is a day game after these teams played yesterday. So you never know what the lineups are going to look like. But Waka's just a guy that I don't really want to pay 8K for, especially not against the Cubs. It's decent weather, 60 degrees. So it's not like a Wrigley wind blowing out game where the totals are massive. But yeah, Waka's just, he's a guy I rarely get to. Doesn't really get a ton of swinging strikes, doesn't get a lot of chases.
Yeah.
And this is a tough Cubs lineup if they roll out even a B lineup. So I'm off Waka here.
All right. It's looking like I'm going to have about 10%. Now that's going to change as so on a 4-game slate, I'll run about a third of my lineups with 4-4 stacks. I'll run about a third of them as 5-3, and then I'll do the rest of them as 3-3 and take some one-offs here. Now, to mix things up just a little bit, I'll start changing what I'm doing with my pitcher weighting on each of those to try to or limit my stacks to specific teams where I want to target for those 5-mans. The 3-mans, I just let it run without many caps, because what I'm trying to do is just capture the best hitters on this lineup, and I focus more on the 2 pitchers and where the ownerships are coming in for those 3 different segments. So that's how I handled some of these shorter slates, and I'm trying to determine which seems to be better. And it actually looks like, Jake, the 3-3 stacks, or even a 4-0 or a 5-0, tend to do a little bit better than trying to force in a double stack on these smaller slates.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's merit in stacking less on smaller slates. So I don't have an issue with getting an array of different 3-mans. I've seen Alex using lineup study. I've seen Alex run out some 4-man, just like 4-man stacks with, one-offs for the rest of his lineup, which is interesting. So really on shorter slates, the more you can talk yourself into stacking less or doing kind of funky lineup constructions.
Yeah, it oftentimes will definitely give you the opportunity to have it work out in your favor. And I heard you mention lineup study. It's a little something that we are now partnering with Fantasy Cruncher to offer here. It's FC Pro. So if you boost yourself that little upgrade, you'll automatically get the Osmo ownership projections coming into Fantasy Cruncher. Which is very nice because it lets you know where everything is. You still can set your own exposures where you would like them to be. But then, as Jake was mentioning, you have a lineup study. So this is a creation of one of my pals, Manny Laura, has worked together with Dave Stetler there at Fantasy Cruncher. And what it does is it allows you to go in and look at prior slates and see what actual lineup construction other gamers have been using. And it's a very handy tool because it does all of the work for you. You can look and see who ran 4-4 stacks, 5-3, 4-3-1s, etc. And it's something that's very, very useful. And I know there's a couple other lineup database type things out there, but this is light years ahead of what they're doing, because it's very intuitive, and it shows you a lot of different things that you may not understand. So what you can do with this is you can see what some of the other gamers are doing that were successful for that day. You can go into the Fantasy Cruncher Rewind, put your projections that you used for that slate in there, and try to mimic what they were doing and see where you would have come out. And you can see, were you using too much randomness? Should you have used 1, 2, or 3 unique players? Should you have done what different types of stacks? And it's quite the useful tool, so you can find some holes in your game, or you can dispel some myths, or you can confirm other things that you suspected were true, but you didn't know for sure. So this is a phenomenal tool that you can utilize here. And we'll talk about this a lot in the premium Slack, teach you guys how to use it. There's some videos out there, etc. But it's interesting to see when someone has a phenomenal night, Jake, or even on these short slates, go in and see what they're doing. I'm sure Alex said when he started Austin, he wanted to level the playing field. Yikes. Does he have anything left up his sleeve? He's definitely giving us a lot of his tips and tricks. We're using his baseline projections for a lot of our tools now. We've got the ownership projections, etc. What's he doing, Jake? What's he doing?
Yeah, he's making it easier for us to be like him. So yeah, just the lineup study tool is tops in the industry. I think there's not really another tool that's as in-depth as it and as easy to use. So if you're looking to upgrade to FC Pro, would suggest you do that. I see some people in the YouTube chat talking about using lineup study. I don't know the status on that, if you can use that right now, but if you do have Fantasy Cruncher through us, you should be able to access FC Pro. That is free for the time being until they figure out some of the billing issues through the Osmos site. So,
and we were helping beta test this, so we've seen it for. And I had lineup study anyway on my own, but we've seen this for like probably 2 weeks now. But it did the FC Pro portion where it's bringing in our projections that went live for everybody yesterday. And I can't tell from my account, but the lineup study should be available for now as well. And as Jake said, it's kind of in beta in that they're working through what they're going to do. And this essentially will kind of be a pass through cost. We'll collect the monies for it, but then we send it along there to Fantasy Cruncher. So and generally what they've done previously with Fantasy Cruncher is they've allowed us to offer it at somewhat of a discount over their regular price, coming in here just because they know we support it and we've got the projections and help everybody out in Slack to understand the little tips and tricks. So that's one of the things that they've consciously done to get this out more to everybody there. All right, back to current day, back to present day here, Jake. Going against Darvish, catch as catch can. I do like Goldschmidt. I'm fine with any of the many righties that may pop into my lineup here. This will just sort of be more of a leverage opportunity. Looking at our fully loaded ownership here, we have Darvish coming in at just 22% right now. Number one is Carrasco at 54. Soroka and Ross are coming in at twin 37. We'll talk about them in a moment. And then Darvish at 22. So no real surprise there. I would expect Darvish to be on about a third of lineups. So 22 is relatively close, but my guess is that may inch up as we get more lineups there and figure out what cheap catcher or what fourth or fifth outfielders in the lineup or what utility guy maybe getting the day game start after most teams played last night. So that'll move around just a little bit. But those are the guys it's looking like I would be interested in from St. Louis. And then as far as stacks, I'm just running my baseline 4-4 stack. I'm getting St. Louis coming in at number 4, actually, at 25% of my player pool is a 4-4 stack here. So quite interesting. Now I'll start to tweak my percentages here, and that'll change a little bit, but I'll let everybody know what's going on. Next game. Mike Leake in Cleveland going against Carlos Carrasco. Leake, he's striking out a little bit more than he has in his career. He's got 12 years of saying he's not really a strikeout pitcher. The one concerning thing with Leake, Jake, he keeps getting hit harder and harder and harder each season. Now he's lucked out in moving to T-Mobile Park for the last season and a half, so that's helping things. But hitting in the Jake, oh, look at that. Everything's coming back to Jake today. Hitting in Jacobs Field here or pitching in Jacobs Field, not always the best place here. And we have a fully healthy lineup here coming from Cleveland. Now, of course, they don't have Encarnacion, Yonder Alonso, Gomes. Those guys are all on other teams now. Brantley, but this is a solid lineup, so I'm a little nervous about going with Mike Leake here. You got likely we will see Lindor, Jose Ramirez, Carlos Santana until he falls apart. Probably in the next week or two, Carlos Gonzalez will be in the lineup. What do you want to do here with Leake, or is it going to be the Cleveland batsman here?
It's going to be Cleveland bats. It looks like they're super chalky, but I think kind of tough to avoid Lindor and Ramirez, especially for me. And those guys look like they're going to be two of the chalkiest hitters in the slate. Not getting to a lot of Leak. I think I didn't even get one share of him, so he's another guy I didn't get to at all. Huge total against him, a guy that already can't miss a ton of bats. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of strikeouts in here for him anyways. So I'll just allocate my exposure to other guys besides Leak. And it's not even like if he was 5K here or something crazy, I would think about it. But like almost 7K for a guy that already doesn't strike guys out is a pass for me.
Definitely concur on that. I just retweaked a few things here, running another set of crunches. I've now capped some of my pitchers here, so it looks like I'm still going to end up with about 20% of Mike Leake. Again, I'm continuing to tweak things here, but for me, I'm probably going to try to goose Carlos Carrasco because he's only coming in at 14% of my crunches right now, but I am getting a very healthy share at 2/3 of my lineups have Mike Soroka. We'll get to him in a second. If you're looking at Carrasco here, and we agree he is probably the best pitcher on this slate, what is your percentage coming in at right now? The field's going to be at about half. Where are you coming in with Carrasco?
Right around there. It's going to be 40 to 60%, somewhere in there before lock. I mean, he's just, for me, the best option by a good margin. Now, there's not a ton of strikeouts on Seattle either, but well, actually, looking at some of these guys, for some reason, I had Seattle not striking out at all, but I'm seeing Beckham at 26%, Vogelbach, Encarnacion, and Haniger all around 22. So at best or at worst, it's probably like an average strikeout matchup here for Carrasco, and he's just a guy with elite stuff. Just the complete opposite in that. I'll take him in subpar matchups compared to a guy like Leak because he's got a 13.5% swinging strike rate, above average chase rate, and all that. So hopefully take the raw points here at 10-2 and just kind of move on with my SP2s with some guys we'll talk about in the next couple of games.
Right, and that's another term that we'll throw out from time to time. Raw points. So basically, it is what it sounds like. It's the total number of points a player is going to score. The smaller the slate size, like this one with just 4 games, the more important it is to throw a lasso around as many of the points as you can where you think they're going to come from, because it's harder to make up the difference when you don't have as many options. Now, in baseball, because things can absolutely go sideways, and we've already seen Carlos Carrasco get rocked a couple times this year, and it's something that he gives up crooked numbers with 1, 2, or 3 innings, usually half a dozen times a season. So usually when the weather's warmer, he's no stranger to getting his ass kicked from time to time. Now it's 50 degrees here in Cleveland at first pitch, so favorable pitching weather. We've got about a 6 to 8 mile an hour wind coming in from right center or left center, or hey center, it looks like, depending on which side I'm looking at. The little arrows pointing slightly differently for each of those. Of course, that can change, but directionally, it looks like it's coming in, so that's a little bit of a help there. But the Mariners have just a 3.5 implied run total. Jake, that feels like what Cincinnati was hamstrung with for the better part of the last week. We did not really see them go above 4, or rarely above 4 implied runs. Of course, they, actual results may vary as they did last night. But 3.5 runs, that's a little odd when you consider how good the Mariners were at the beginning of the season. Now, this is an interesting thing because what were they, 13-2, leading the league in scoring and home runs and all sorts of craziness. Their manager is now having to explain why they're, quote, falling apart, Jake, because they're now barely above 500. Now, if they had been without these streaks, and I was telling this to Adam last night on the podcast, but if they had been without these streaks, we would consider them a plucky team that has been doing well despite turning over the bulk of their roster in the last season. But now they're a disappointment because everybody was literally on a hot streak going forward. This is the market correction we've been waiting for, and the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm loving Carlos Carrasco here.
Yep. Yeah, can't disagree with that. So, I don't know. I mean, he's the best pitcher on the slate. I think you could make an argument for Soroka, and Soroka might be my highest owned, but from a raw points perspective, it's not really all that close for me.
All right, let's move along here to our next one. This is the third and final of the 4 o'clock games. We have Kansas City at Detroit. You've got Homer Bailey going against Tyson Ross. Now, the one thing about Tyson Ross is I believe if channeling my inner Lofty, this would be an enigmatic pitcher, meaning we never know what we're going to get. Sometimes he has that electric stuff, but injuries have sapped him of so much. Now, he has a little bit of a home run issue, but over his last 200 innings, that hasn't particularly reared its head. And 200 innings is about the equivalent of a full season. Now, it took him 2 seasons to get to those 200 innings pitched because he's been hurt so darn much. But the sneaky thing about Kansas City, Jake, actually quiz time. Where do you think they are in isolated power, team ranking wise, against right-handed pitching?
I mean, we've got some okay hitters. Like O'Hearn's got power, Soler's got power, Mondesi, Merrifield are both fine. So maybe somewhere middle of the pack.
They're number 6.
Really?
That was the same look I had. I was like, wait, what? I was all ready to write up this article slightly differently because I used them in the Spotlight Hitters and Slack, so I'll drop that into chat. But that was a surprise. Now, you mentioned O'Hearn. You realize he hasn't started in 3 games now.
Yeah, he's been quite the slump, I think.
Yes, he does not have a hit in 3 games. He did get a pinch hit double last night. So I'm hoping he's in the lineup. If he's not in the lineup, that he's a major source of their power. But you still have, as you mentioned, Soler a little better against lefties. Dozier has some solid, just raw power potential. But it's the stolen bases. Who do you think leads the league in stolen bases, Jake? Leading question there.
Merrifield or Mondesi? It's got to be one of those 2 guys.
Yes, I'm getting to calling that up right now. It is. Where to go? It is. So Adalberto Mondesi has 10. Whit Merrifield has 6. Billy Hamilton, when he gets on base, he steals. He may not get on base more than once or twice a week, but when he gets on, he steals. He has 8, and then Chris Owings and Terrence Gore have 4 apiece. Kansas City is 33 as a team. They're number 1. And Mondesi is 1st. Hamilton is 4th. Merrifield is 12th. And then Owings and Gore are checking in just outside of the top 20. So a lot of speed here. Over his last 200 innings, Tyson Ross has allowed just 20 stolen bases, but he has not faced an elite team packed with base stealers like this one. So I'm setting the over under at 2.5 steals against Tyson Ross today. Where do you want to go with that? That's an aggressive number in one game.
Well, I mean, looking at what they did on April 7th when he faced Kansas City, they were 2 for 3 stolen bases. So the attempts is more that what I look at.
Okay.
They obviously know they can steal on him. So I would expect Mondesi and Merrifield and Hamilton, if he's in, to be off and running here. That being said, I think both of these pitchers are guys that I'm going to have a ton of. I'll be filtering them in and out with Soroka and Carrasco. So, I think Ross could be okay here. I think he could rack up a couple strikeouts, but I'm also going to have a bunch of KC stacks. I'm going to have a bunch of Merrifield. I'm going to have a bunch of Mondesi, especially.
All right. So it's interesting that you're talking about these guys as SP2s. Now, again, 8 in our player pool, so they're going to come into play here. But Homer Bailey, yikes. That's the best description I've got for him. So we know we're going to really like Nick Castellanos. That's a given. We know that we're going to also like Nico Goodrum. Sure, both these guys have about 340 isolated powers plus 200 isolated powers, or weighted on base. WOBA is 340-ish. Isolated power is 210-ish for these guys. But then it falls off the shelf, Jake. Heimer Candelario had 19 home runs last season. He does not have any this year. Remember that guy that last won the Triple Crown? What was his name again? Miguel Cabrera. Have you looked at his numbers recently?
No.
His last 220 plate appearances, he has a 100 isolated power against righties. If he were to get 550 plate appearances this season, Jake, what do you think his home run and RBIs would be? So, like when we say, "Oh yeah, the guy's 30 and 30 home runs, 100 RBIs," that's usually over about 600 plate appearances. What do you think a full season of current level Cabrera would work out to be?
Under 20 homers, probably
6.
Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's he's not even really a middle infielder at this point in his career with all of the injuries that have just absolutely sapped everything. Now he's still got an okay average, but there are no extra base hits. I don't know that there are extra base hits in his future. What do you want to do here targeting against Bailey outside of Goodrum and Castellanos?
I mean, I'm fine stacking both these teams. I think I'm just gonna have a lot of basically everything in this game, just because there's cheap hitters, there's cheap pitching. Something's got to give here. But again, my favorite parts are probably Mondesi, Merrifield. Uh, I'm gonna have similar amounts of both Ross and Bailey, even though it's not comfortable either one of those. So I guess I'm not taking huge stands. You mentioned Castellanos, Candelario leading off for 3,600 against Bailey. Is kind of a ridiculous price. He just never comes up in price, it seems like. And then Goodrum cleanup at 4,300 also sticks out. So the top four for Detroit will be the guys I mostly want to target Bailey with. But I think there's just value all over the place with this game.
All right. I'm looking here at, let's see. So Castellanos, there we go. Cabrera has 5 doubles and a home run across his 120 plate appearances. Yikes. Candelario has 6 doubles and 1 triple across his 120. Just no power at all. So we'll see. This is Homer Bailey. Baseball's a funny thing, and we can have some corrections here. But Candelario really only had that one good season, and it was last year. So maybe that was his outlier season. And Cabrera seemingly has declined much farther than I think a lot of us are thinking about. So, it's the DFS strategy show. Just want to talk about some of this stuff. So file it away, because sometimes you'll hear people saying, oh my gosh, Miguel Cabrera, he is just too cheap. Is he too cheap to take up your first base spot if he's going to hit like a Punch and Judy middle infielder? I think not. Nobody knows who Punch and Judy is. Why do I even use that reference? All right. They're little puppets like from the 40s and 50s, and they would hit each other with baseball bats, basically. And that was a Punch and Judy hitter, because you would whack each other all the time with the bats, and it didn't do anything. That's the origin of that particular terminology. I don't remember Punch and Judy. I just know what it means. But there you go. There's your
that reference gonna be lost on me.
Yeah, there's your ancient reference of the day. Let's move along here to our final game of the early main slate. This is a 6:00 game. Mike Soroka, hell yeah. I want to take some of Soroka going against the Miami Marlins. Marlins have a 3.3 implied run total. This one is in Marlins Park. I'll have to. The hardest thing you can figure out is if the bleeping Miami Park roof is open, Jake, because they direct you to a Twitter account on their site, and the Twitter account rarely says if the park roof is open or closed, even though it's run or affiliated with the Marlins. Frustrating as heck. I don't care though. I want Soroka all the way here. He is going to be vying for my favorite pitcher point per dollar with Carlos Carrasco. Where are you coming in with Soroka?
He's a tough guy to avoid. I mean, coming off a really quality start against another team that you like targeting pitchers against in San Diego, he's got a really good chase rate, actually, 33.3%. His swinging strikes are almost 11%. So he's got a little bit more swing and miss than I anticipated. And then the matchup against the Marlins is just as good as it gets for a righty, 27% K rate. For the Marlins, no power, 104 ISO, and a 72 WRC plus versus righties this season, under 300 on base percentage. I mean, they're just really, really, really bad against righties. And I mean, on the other side, like, who would you look to leverage against Soroka with? I mean, there's always
Granderson. That's it. Yeah, that's literally it.
That's the only guy. Or maybe Alfaro if you're just trying to get a home run. He's a guy with some power. But yeah, it's really ugly when you're trying to leverage against him. So yeah, Soroka is my second guy behind Carrasco.
Looking at Trevor Richards, one of the many talented Marlins hurlers that they have, the one issue he has is his walk rate. Over his last 690 batters faced, he has a 10.4% walk rate combined. He also has a combined 23% strikeout rate, so that's good to see. But he's going to be going against some tough hitters here. No easy outs. Up and down the Atlanta lineup, we should see Albies, Freeman, Markakis, And NCRT from the left side of the plate, from the right side. We'll have to see what's going on with Josh Donaldson. He's been dealing with, I think it's back spasms. There's about 4 guys that are dealing with back spasms right now, and I believe he is one of them. Soto, Yelich, and there's one other guy out there that's just been in the lineup, in the listed lineup, and then they just don't make it. They're late scratches, if you will. But Acuna, I think we'll see Swanson today. Usually you see Camargo against lefties, but we'll have to see if anybody gets the day off. If Donaldson is out, Camargo should be in the lineup, but he will probably bat in the bottom of third here. What do you want to do with Trevor Richards here, Jake?
The guy that I like in general, I say it every time the Braves are on the slate. They're just not a team that I ever want to attack really this season. So like Richards, he's got a ton of swing and miss, and he's actually going to be fine against lefties because of his changeup. But he's gotten knocked around pretty good lately, and against some good teams. This is also another really good team. Like I don't really see a ton of upside in playing Richards here, and a lot of downside. There are some hitters I really like. Acuna, I absolutely love for 4,400 here. Righty, maybe people won't be on him as much, but I think he is one of the better plays on the board. And I will be having a bunch of Brave stacks because if you get by Richards, who we respect, you get this Marlins bullpen behind him. So yeah, I'm going to have, under 10% Richards. He will end up in a couple lineups here and there, but more Braves than Richards for sure.
All right. We had a couple lineups pop up here. David Bodie, I believe that's how I am pronouncing it. I know that's how I'm pronouncing it. I don't know if it's correct or not, but he's batting 5th, and Taylor Davis is catching for the Cubbies. So there's your super cheap catcher of the day. You also have the Kansas City Royals lineup. We do have Ryan O'Hearn. I'm excited. He is batting 6th. That's okay. Home runs from the 6 hole count just as much as they do from the top of the order. And he's 3,400 here on DK. $500 less than Miggy Cabrera. I will take O'Hearn every single time in this matchup today.
Yeah, O'Hearn, he's got massive power when he can contact the ball, and Ross, a guy that really struggles with lefties. So I like the call there with O'Hearn, 3,400 on DK.
Right. That is going to, let me make a little note here so I don't have to chase this down when I'm putting, let's see, where are we? We are, oh goodness, we're 45 minutes in already. But that's our early slate there. Now we're going to go on the main slate. Reminder, you will get live before lock this evening. That will go off promptly. Not Osmo, not FanVice, formerly promptly. We're starting at 6 tonight. Because we do have 10 games, and we're going to bang that out in 65 minutes. That will be myself and Chris Spags. Of course, it'll be a lot easier.
That's me.
Oh, it's you tonight?
Yep.
Oh, excellent. Jake and I, the redux, as they say.
Yep.
Part dia. Did Spags pay you? Did he send some Grubhub your way?
We redid the schedule a little bit. So next Saturday you'll be with him, and then we'll be alternating, I believe. That's how we're going to do it. So
perfect.
Adam, you'll be with Adam and Chris next Saturday, and so on. And then me, then them.
Oh, so you're doubling down. Well, that makes sense, because then you get a full Saturday off when you're not on.
Right, exactly. That's the point. We wanted to give people full days off here and there.
There we go. All right, let's hit the evening contest here. We've got Washington Nationals up there in Philadelphia. Again, keep an eye on that swirling storm that could be impacting Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. But you've got Patrick Corbin going in there to Citizens Bank Ballpark against the Phillies with a 4.5 implied run total. Jake Arrieta is on the other side. The Washington Nationals, this is like their AAA squad, Jake. If we list all of their players that were on their opening day roster last year versus who is on their roster now, there's no Bryce Harper traded or signed elsewhere. There's no Daniel Murphy traded. Trey Turner, broken finger. Juan Soto, dealing with back spasms. He's been listed in the starting lineup and scratched for the last 3 games. There's not much bite to this Nationals lineup at this point. It's a gift, that they're getting a 4.2 implied run total here against Arrieta. I guess they're just saying, yeah, we know Arrieta doesn't strike out players as much as he used to, and some of these guys here on the Nats are going to put it in play. But let's focus. Let's assume Soto's out. If he's in, love to play him. He's phenomenal. 20-year-old wonderkin, love it. If he's not in, let's operate under that assumption. Oh, Ryan Zimmerman, I'm sorry, he's on the DL as well. So we've got Matt Adams. Okay, probably start there. Victor Robles, speed for days. And then Carter Kieboom, who is up. That's Spencer's younger brother. But Carter is there at 3,700 at shortstop. Those are the three I'm looking at here, Jake. This is a watered down lineup. How watered down is it? Well, Howie Kendrick is projected as the cleanup hitter.
Yikes. Yeah, so this is going to depend for me on Soto. Once again, I don't like to put too much stock in one hitter being in or out of the lineup. But I would assume if Soto is out, we're going to see Arrieta's ownership go up quite a bit. I'm assuming you would agree with that as well. I would really love to play Soto if he's in, but what's his price on? Okay, 8,600. I was looking at the wrong guy. Yeah, I saw 7,300 there for a second, but I was looking at Lance Lynn on Fantasy Cruncher. It's just a price I rarely want to pay for Arrieta, a guy with a sub 7% swinging strike rate on the season, 6.6 below average chase rate. He can be effective when he's getting first pitch strikes and be efficient, but he's the guy I don't want to play when he's owned, especially not for 8,600. So regardless of Soto being in or out, I'm probably off Arrieta. He always grades really low in my model compared to where other projection systems have him. And then Corbin, while he's incredibly talented, Phillies are one of those teams, along with the Braves, that I just hate targeting. So you get Harper lefty, and maybe you can rack up some strikeouts here, but I have a hard time believing that Corbin can get through this game unscathed. So decent total against him and decent weather as well in Philadelphia for hitting. So I think 10-4 is a little bit too expensive for Corbin for me.
All right. I'm kind of coming to the same conclusion there. If this one was in Nats Park, perhaps, but being in Philly, not quite as enticing, even though they only have 4.5 implied run total. Moving on to our next game here, one of the potentially, we're going to cover the three that are potentially weather impacted. This is Baltimore hosting the Tampa Bay Rays. We have Ryan Stanek starting the game. It's going to be a coin flip as to who you think is coming in next, because Tampa Bay is under no obligations to tell us if it's going to be Yonny Chirinos. I believe last time they said it was going to be Yonny Chirinos. It was Jalen Beeks.
Yep.
Jalen Beeks. What are we going to do? I don't know. But if you think, and I see a lot of people get pissy about this on Twitter, how many times, even before the openers, did you hear, oh, it's a bullpen game? And you just, it was like, well, we don't know who's going to come in next, because it's going to depend on what's coming up in the lineup. And do we go with the righty now? Do we go with lefty? What are we going to do? Are we getting our ass kicked? Do we just put out the guy that's going to absorb 4 innings of continued beatdowns in the long reliever? What are you going to do? Well, this is a whole new ball game here. But again, they're under no obligation to tell us what they're going to do. And it makes sense that they don't necessarily want to, because that could influence the good or bad. It could influence the opponent's lineups accordingly. Now, I want who's ever coming in, because they're going against Baltimore, Jake. Baltimore is bad. Not Bad News Bears bad. They're abysmal bad. Are you going to roll the dice at all if we get no other information than we have right now that says we suspect it's going to be Yonny Chirinos as the probable long reliever?
Yeah, that's what I'm
risk
saying.
That zero.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as the probable long reliever. I hope we kind of don't know, but because then we're going to get Chirinos at really low ownership. Yes. I'm probably going to take some stabs there.
I think 5% is the right number for me. I'll just goose it. I'll cap him at 5. I'll goose his projection so I get him in 5. And then if he doesn't start well, I'll just say, well, at least he's not getting negative points. Or I mean, if he's not the guy.
Yeah, he's priced down too. Are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Sounded like, oh, is that your computer fan?
Yeah, apparently the cord was loose on the mic, and now everything went really, really loud because I goosed the volume so much. It's like, why is Jake yelling in my ear? No, it was the cord that was not it.
So yeah, Chirinos priced down. Like we saw him up at like 8K, he's 6,800. tonight. Even if I put him in for 5 innings, I'm going to end up with a lot of Chirinos, and he's going to be one of the guys I go to in this mid-tier. So I'm hoping we get word that it's likely going to be him, but not for sure, just to keep his ownership down. And not really targeting the Orioles bats. I hate targeting the opener game because you basically lose an at-bat with Stanek, a guy with really nasty stuff, and he just shuts down the first 5 or 6 hitters, which is really annoying when you're trying to play hitters against him, and then you get a completely different pitcher coming in. Bundy versus the Rays bats. You can, with Bundy, when he's priced at 7K, you can always see both sides here. He's got good strikeout stuff, but I'm more on the Tampa bats than I am Bundy here. Choi really sticks out. Nate Lowe, I believe, plus Brandon Lau. I think I got that right. Those are also 2 guys I love against Bundy. And even Kiermaier, if he's batting 7th for 4,300. So I love the lefties against Bundy. I love the full stack because you do get the Orioles bullpen if this game indeed goes. Bundy, just massive, massive home run problems.
Right. I wanted to look here. Let's see. When I surprised myself by screwing up my microphone here, I closed all my tabs that I had open, which is frustrating. So I want to see. Do you know how many home runs? There we go. I wanted to see a number of home runs that Bundy has given up. Bundy's given up 9 thus far this season. That ranks, he's tied for 3rd. So Corbin Burns gave up 11, got sent back down to the minors. Mike Leake, hey, we talked about him. He's given up 10 this season. You got, and then tied with 9 apiece, you got Bundy, Cobb, Lopez, and that'd be Ronaldo Lopez and Trevor Cahill. So there we are. Oh boy, chat. Are you getting the weird?
Your voice is really low. That's fine. So yeah, I know that I don't really have a ton more.
All right, we'll have to see what's happening here. I've unplugged my mic. Okay, all right, let's go with that. My camera was all of a sudden taking over as the microphone with the embedded camera. So I'm off my I'm off the mic. I'm just gonna go with the embedded one here, and so it's hopefully a little bit better for those of you watching along at home. As fun as it would be to have me doing some weird voices, I know that is a little bit frustrating. So we'll go on that route. Back to the task at hand as I'm reopening all the windows that I had. Anything else you want to talk about here with Baltimore and Tampa Bay? Yeah, potentially. Let's see. All right, they say they can't hear you, so let me think here. What is the best way to do this? We are going to have, let me see here. Jake, you stay in the room and I will come back into it, and hopefully this won't blow the video connection.
You're on the spot. Jake Boston moves. Yep.
Oh, now I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Wait.
I'm probably in your headphones on.
All right, we're just gonna restart the show, guys. Sorry about this.